Hello everyone, and today I'm going to be talking about Gary's economics. I'm sure most of you have heard of Gary, especially those of you based in the UK. Gary is a trader and economist who's shot to fame recently for his messages around taxing wealth. In fact, his core slogan is "Tax wealth, not work." He comes from a working class background but managed to become a millionaire after getting into trading and economics. And I think that's why a lot of people really resonate with his messaging. They can relate to the fact that he came from a very working class background, but they also maybe appreciate the fact that he has managed to succeed and do well under this capitalist system and yet still come out of the other side of that and critique it. I guess it kind of shows an integrity that most people wouldn't normally associate with people who have become millionaires or even richer. Now, just a quick disclaimer before I start the meat of this video. I don't want this whole video coming across like I'm just criticizing or critiquing Gary. He has really done a great job in getting so many people on board with his central message, tax wealth, not work.
Thank you very much. Tax wealth, not work.
I think he's done such a good job, especially in Britain, of reaching people who were otherwise centrist or right-wing or right-leaning and bringing them on board with more leftist ideas. However, that being said, I feel like now is really the time where he could start doing so much more with the audience base he has engaged with. There's already been another YouTuber who's done a bit of a critique of Gary, that is Alice Capel. Alex critiques the idea that taxing the ultra-wealthy just 2% isn't actually enough.
As I said earlier, the message tax the rich isn't very clear. So I started doing my own research to understand what Gary actually means by it. I found that he has shown support for various initiatives related to taxing the rich. All of these are directly or indirectly tied to a specific policy, a 2% tax on assets over £10 million, which could raise an estimated of £24 billion per year.
Anyway, her video essay is also a very good critique and I'd recommend watching it. I've put it in the description below. What I want to talk about more today is why I think Gary's economics messaging needs to be more interconnected and also needs to do more to actually present alternatives and solutions that can empower people to take control of the current economy today. So here's the thing, Gary's simple but effective marketing, tax wealth not work, has brought a lot of people on board with this idea now. I don't feel like that is in question anymore. The problem is that's kind of where the messaging ends. I did see him go on one podcast with Jimmy the Giant where they start to talk a bit about how late stage capitalism has come to an end.
But the truth is capitalism is already finished. We live in inheritocracy, which is basically feudalism.
But they don't really push this further to examine what the alternatives to capitalism could be and how we could start actually working those into our society right now, how the average person could actually start working those into our society right now. So I feel like although Gary's done a great job with getting people on board with his core message, it's kind of like, now what? You know, all these people, they're on board, they get it, they want the ultra wealthy taxed, so do we just sit around and wait till we can vote in the next general election? That's 4 years away. Do we just keep signing petitions and lobbying to MPs and listening to Gary saying the same thing over and over again? I just don't feel like that's going to actually enact the change that we need. We know at this point that our politicians don't have our best interests at heart. Even with all of Gary's campaigning and even though they can see that a lot of the public are on board, I don't think they're suddenly going to wake up one morning and go, oh yeah, you're totally right, let's just tax the ultra wealthy 2% or more now. We need to do more than just set more rules and laws and policies on capitalism. What we actually need to do is radically change the entire economy and shift away from capitalism. And I feel like Gary doesn't really go into this that deeply in his videos and on his podcast interviews. Because the thing is, capitalism is organised around constant GDP growth. Capitalism requires that we grow our GDP by 2 to 3% each year just to stay afloat. This means our economy has to double every 23 years. The thing is, our planet is finite, right? We don't have an infinite amount of resources. Continuing to grow our GDP just to feed capitalism at such a ridiculous rate is only going to accelerate ecological breakdown and the climate crisis. And I understand why Gary doesn't talk about ecological breakdown or the climate crisis in his videos. For a lot of people, these seem like very intangible concepts. They don't seem to impact their day-to-day life that much. But the problem is that they do, and they will only continue to actually make their lives worse if we don't address them. In fact, the climate crisis and ecological breakdown are just going to keep increasing the cost of living crisis and thus driving wealth inequality. Simply putting a tax on the ultra-wealthy isn't actually going to radically transform capitalism in the way that we need to, and thus isn't really going to do anything to slow either ecological breakdown or the climate crisis. and that isn't really going to address wealth inequality in the long run. Here's why. Ecological problems and social problems are extremely interlinked. Bookchin's theory of social ecology describes how ecological problems arise from deep-seated social problems. But the opposite is also true. Social problems are also going to arise from ecological problems. Let's take agriculture as an example. We are in the middle of ecological collapse and ecological breakdown. This means the number of bees and butterflies and other pollinators are declining. Less pollinators means crops can less easily be pollinated. Our soils, however, are an even bigger issue. The health of our soils are declining massively, with farmers finding it harder and harder to grow crops at the rates they were before because they've used up so many nutrients in the soil because of all the industrial agriculture that's been taking place to drive forwards capitalism. Add on top of this all of the impacts of climate change, weather patterns being way more difficult to predict, natural disasters being way more frequent, and you've got a really hard time for anyone trying to grow food. This means the cost of food is going to go up, and hence wealth inequality is only going to get worse. This is why you can't just talk about a wealth tax without seeing the wider, bigger picture. If we keep going as we are, even if we regulate capitalism to be more friendly to people, we're not really going to be addressing the core issues in our society. And by the way, I'm only talking about the UK here. This is ignoring the vast majority of the world who are already experiencing way worse impacts from the climate crisis and ecological breakdown than we are. Anyway, a tax on wealth, not work, is great, but it's just not enough. We need to radically reshape capitalism. We need a complete overhaul of the system. We need alternative economies. And also we need average people like yourselves or myself to be able to drive forwards the future that we want to see. Not just wait around for politicians or economists to decide what is a good idea and what little tidbits they're going to let us have. Here are 3 alternatives to capitalism that we can start implementing right now. I'm going to start with the ones that are kind of more on a global level and then go down to the one that's more on a community-based level that you can actually start doing right this minute. Number 1 on a global level is degrowth. Degrowth is the idea of decoupling the economy from the profit motive. The economy as a whole on a global level should be focused on well-being. It should divest from harmful industries such as fossil fuels or weaponry and invest in areas which are going to directly improve our lives, like healthcare or regenerative agriculture. Innovation should center the needs and desires of us, of people, not of profit. I'm looking at you, AI. Hickel, an economist who writes all about degrowth, explains that degrowth is planned reduction of excess energy and resource use to bring the economy back into balance with the living world in a safe, just and equitable way. Number 2, we've got the circular economy. This is something that can be integrated industry-wide, but also at a more local community level. The circular economy helps us to reuse and recirculate resources to avoid waste and over-extraction. This could be through ditching single-use items or unrenewable forms of energy like fossil fuels, biodegrading or recycling things wherever possible, and saying goodbye to planned obsolescence where things are designed purposefully to break. Here's the thing, under capitalism, objects are designed to make a profit, not to actually make your life better. This is another way in which sustainability is directly tied to actually improving people's lives. If we make objects in a more modular and reusable way, they're going to last longer, meaning you're going to have to buy less of them. It also means less material is going to have to be extracted from the earth to make them in the first place, and there will be less waste generated. It's a win-win for everyone, except the shareholders of the companies who produce the items who just want to churn out as many as they can to make the most profit. Again, this is another reason why we have to look at the whole picture and how everything is interconnected. You can directly participate in the circular economy right now by trying to engage less with consumerism, invest in more reusable objects rather than single-use ones, and of course this will also save you money in the long run. But those few solutions I've just listed don't really help the average person. The average working class person in this country can barely afford to keep afloat, so of course that's going to make people more reliant on buying cheaper things that last less long rather than be able to have enough money up front to buy the thing that's maybe more expensive but will last longer. And there's another reason why capitalism just kind of feeds itself. By keeping people poor, you're actually increasing their reliance on shittily made objects that are just going to fall apart after a few uses, meaning you have to keep buying more and more and more of them, and trap yourself in this endless cycle of just not being able to actually afford anything. Number 3, this is where it gets really juicy. Solidarity/gift economy. So as you can probably already tell, I don't really like videos that don't offer a clear solution that people can actually enact in their lives right now. And I feel like with Gary's videos, he does a great job of bringing people on board to the idea of tax wealth, not work. But once people are on board, it's kind of like, okay, where do we go next? His call to action at the end of the videos is usually share this video, spread the word, spread the idea to your friends and family. He also encourages people to make their own videos or spread the message their own way sometimes. But there's only so much you can do with spread the message. Like, once everyone gets the message, then what?
Send it to your friends, send it to your mum. I'm done for the day.
But when I come back, I want to see more people making cool things. That's what's going to help us win. You guys, ordinary people, getting behind the simple idea that if you don't stop growing wealth inequality, it will destroy living standards for ordinary families. But keep building. If you keep building, we can win this. What I would like you to do is just stick to the message. One simple, clear economic message. The reason for growing poverty, the reason for falling living standards is growing wealth inequality.
We need a way for people to take back control of the economy, of their lives, right now, like in their day-to-day life, not just wait around for politicians to decide that what Gary is saying is a good idea, which I don't, to be honest, have faith they will. We can actually take control of our futures right now. We can actually build the alternatives we want to see right now. So here's the thing. Gift economies and solidarity economies, which are both kind of similar things, can very much be built by you in your community right now. In the long run, they will benefit everyone in your community, including yourself. So a gift economy is where goods and services are gifted without the need for something else immediate in return. For example, this could be if you've got an apple tree growing near you, collecting the apples and giving them for free to your neighbour. It could be lending someone down your street a tool that you've got for a repair they need to make that they don't have. It could be giving a friend a free haircut, helping someone rewire their electrics for free, or giving someone an old camera or phone that you don't use anymore. A gift economy is a form of mutual aid where resources and services are exchanged voluntarily and collaboratively for common benefit. I know it may seem counterintuitive. How is giving things away for free when you already can't afford to get what you need in the first place going to help you out? And especially in our culture at the moment in the UK, it seems so alien. People are already very divided, they don't trust each other. We barely even know our neighbours anymore. We don't have many friends, we're isolated. And again, these are all symptoms of capitalism, like we have to spend a whole day working, isolated from our friends and family. We have barely any leisure time to actually participate in activities we enjoy and thus create community. All of our focus and time is on our own nuclear family unit. And when we do suddenly have maybe a little bit of disposable income or a little bit of leisure time, we want to spend that escaping from our current predicament. And so it can be really hard to take that first leap of faith and start to rebuild things like gift economies, like systems of mutual aid, or even just rebuilding community. But once we start to do that, once we start to build those systems that can eventually slowly replace parts and chunks of capitalism, we'll be much better off for it. So yeah, building little gift economies in your street, in your communities, by gifting things to people for free will hopefully help to build overall in your community a sort of solidarity economy. So a solidarity economy is a holistic model made up of participatory and grassroots democracy, worker self-management and ecological regeneration. And it focuses on collective well-being and sustainable development. In a solidarity economy, relationships would be horizontal and self-organised. This means we would be eliminating hierarchy. This might sound quite radical for people who may be coming from Gary's economics, but hierarchy is another one of those things that is so ingrained in capitalism and the capitalist way of thinking that we really just need to get rid of. In a typical workplace, you maybe got the shareholders, then you've got a CEO or manager or director, then you've got the middle managers, and then you've just got the regular employees. And this very stratified hierarchy just helps perpetuate the capitalist system of the actual workers, the people at the bottom, the regular employees getting nothing, and all of the money getting funneled up and up and up and up to the person who does the least amount of work. Okay, so you may be asking, well, apart from just giving things for free, how can I actually foster the values of the solidarity economy, of the gift economy right now? Well, there are 5 main ways I've come up with. Number 1, if you're an entrepreneur or business owner, or otherwise have a small business or a company, turn it into a cooperative. A workers' cooperative eliminates hierarchy. It is an organisation which is owned and jointly run by all of its members, meaning all of the workers have an equal say in decision making and in sharing out the benefits. If we slowly start to turn regular hierarchical businesses into workers' cooperatives, we will see a massive increase in our quality of life. The majority of people will no longer spend their time slaving away, barely seeing any reward for it. Finally, the work they invest in a project in a company will directly come back to them. They'll be part owner of it, they'll get an equal share of the benefits, of the rewards, of the money from it, and they'll also have an equal say in how they want to shape the company, how they want to shape the projects. Number 2 is set up a housing cooperative to build systems of more accessible and communal housing. At the moment, most people have 2 options when it comes to living. Either continue to give inordinate amounts of money to a parasitic landlord every month, or somehow miraculously save up enough to buy a house. For most young people these days, that is basically impossible. Setting up a housing cooperative is an alternative to both of these. There are various different models of housing cooperatives, some that are more ownership based, some that are more like renting, but finding friends or a community to set up one with could be a viable alternative to our other 2 options, which don't really give us much of a choice in how we actually want to live. I've put a few resources about housing co-ops in the description, so you can check those out if you're interested. Number 3 is one I kind of covered in the circular economy part of the video, and that is to rely less on consumerism. But I don't mean this in a very individualistic, neoliberal way of just buy less, don't use plastic straws. Like, yes, buy less if you don't need those things. Don't let the worms of capitalism's marketing burrow themselves into your brain. But also, you can do this by using alternatives that are already out there. Use libraries, use tool libraries, host clothes swaps, find hobbies that aren't consumption focused, but that actually help your community. I've got a video all about that. The link is up here somewhere. There are loads of ways you can reduce your consumerism by actually creating and using systems that are more community oriented. Number 4 is going back to that gift economy principle. Gift giving. Books you've read that you know you probably won't read again, give them to your friends. Clothes you no longer use, instead of throwing them away, if they're still in good condition, give them to friends or community. You could even do a clothes swap. Give food you've grown, or made, or prepared. Old electronics, pieces of furniture, anything people might need. And it goes beyond just items and resources as well. Skills are such an important thing, and these days all of our skills are commodified. There is so much pressure on commodifying and making money from your skills, but what about just giving those for free? If you're good at painting nails, do that for people in your community. If you're good at plumbing, at DIY, making furniture, mending clothes, gardening, or growing food, or cooking food, or even creative things like making art and writing, all of these skills you can share with people. We live in such a disconnected space in the UK that I feel like the main problem people are going to have with the gift economy and solidarity economy is that they just can't trust that all of their efforts, all of their time is ever going to be reciprocated. And that's fair enough. We're so used to living in this individualistic capitalist system that I completely understand why people won't be willing to give their already extremely limited free time and resources away for free when they just don't know if they're going to reap any rewards from that in the future. This is where systems like LETS come in. LETS are local exchange trading schemes. There are loads of these across the UK ages ago, and unfortunately they kind of fell out of popularity, but you should definitely look if you've still got one going in your local area, or if not, think about starting one up again. And basically all of this is a skill sharing network. So it's a way for people to share their skills and share their resources as through the gift economy, but with a fake currency to mediate these. So this is kind of like a transitionary stage. If we can't fully trust ourselves enough to straight away jump into a gift economy or solidarity economy, we can use a LETS, we can use a sort of fake currency to still record these sharings of gifts or resources as transactions, but make it separate from our current economy. So the LETS where I live down in Cornwall, we use a currency called palms, based off the palm trees which are around the town. And I could advertise anything I thought I had the capacity to give away for free on LETS. For example, maybe that's teaching French. I put that on the LETS. Anyone who's then interested can contact me and maybe arrange a time where I can do this for them for free. In doing so, they might give me some palms, maybe 10 or 20 or whatever the going rate is for an hour of your time. I can then use these palms to buy another skill or resource that's being advertised on the LETS system. But the good news is you can go under zero. There is no credit. It's all made up, right? As all currency is. But this has no repercussions. You can just use the LETS as many times as you want and not give anything back. And that's okay. Like, people have different needs. Some people will need to receive a lot more, whilst others have a capacity to give more. And that's the beauty of these systems. It doesn't matter. It's just we're using the currency, the fake currency, as a sort of placeholder for trust. For people who don't really have the confidence to jump straight into building a gift economy or building a solidarity economy without something there still to mediate those sharings of skills and resources. So I'm going to put links in the description to let systems or similar systems, for example, time banking schemes, other kind of skill sharing networks can all be part of this sort of same idea. I'd really recommend seeing if there's one in your area, joining it, or if not, seeing if you can start one up to help people nurture our capacity for gift giving, gift economies and solidarity economies once again. And again, although this seems like so small compared to the main things people are facing, it doesn't have to be. Like, these things can grow, they can snowball, right? Imagine a world where you didn't have to buy most of your food from a supermarket anymore. You could just get it from your community, right? From the community farms in your community, from things people are growing in their backyards, from things people are making. Imagine a world where we didn't have to pay for all the services you need. There are whole chunks of the capitalist system that we can very easily right now just take back control of ourselves and start to share resources and share skills ourselves, in the sense that we won't need to rely on the current economic system, on capitalism. And that leads me on to number 5, which is to organize and build collective systems. Those of you with more time to give, you can start getting organized in your communities to build systems which will help people not have to rely on capitalism, on our current economic system, on money so much anymore. Think about what your community needs. Ask your community what they need. Host people's assemblies. Find out what your community needs and find out how you can organize your community together to collectively pool resources and skills to give back to your community, to set up those systems. For example, if there's no good transport in your community, could you pull together some cars to make a car sharing scheme? Could you set up more community farms or get involved in guerrilla gardening to grow food in spaces which are otherwise being unused? There are so many different ways that communities can collectively organise and start to rebuild systems, regenerate the resources and the skills that are needed in their communities and redistribute them in a way which ensures that everyone can have a better quality of life that they're not currently getting under capitalism. Anyway, that's it for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Once again, I just want to reiterate that I think Gary's messaging is great. It's very simple and that works. As a marketing tool, that works. The simpler, the better. However, I do feel like at this point, we need to push forwards with that. We need to really examine what it is that has got us here in the first place. It's not just wealth inequality, it is capitalism as a whole. We need to explain that capitalism intersects with other issues that are massively going to reduce our quality of lives in the upcoming years, and that includes ecological collapse and the climate crisis. And then we need to show people that there are alternative economies that they can build right now. We don't have to wait for politicians, we don't have to wait for economists, we don't have to wait for the rich to decide they're going to be a bit more lenient with us, give us a few more inches in which to move around in this capitalist system. We can think about what we'd like an alternative, better future to look like and actually build it. The key is community. It's rebuilding systems of trust with your community and using those to build alternative economies that are going to directly benefit you in the future. A lot of these things will benefit you right now. Even if you can get a mini little gift economy thing going in your street, I'm sure you'll have neighbours that will be giving you things that you need in no time. Anyway, that's it for this video, guys. If you enjoyed, make sure to subscribe or let me know in the comments what your thoughts are about Gary's economics, about how Gary's message maybe needs to evolve, and maybe leave a comment on how you're engaging with building systems of alternative economies at the moment, or what you're looking forward to do. Maybe something you've learned from this video or from one of Gary's videos or something else entirely. Thank you for watching and see you in the next one. Bye!